I thought I was the one falling short in our marriage, until she accused me of something I'd never even imagined. But what she didn't know was that the whole house had eyes, and they never lied. My name is Caleb Foster. I'm a 34-year-old IT systems analyst from Charleston, South Carolina. I live a quiet, structured life, or at least I used to. I've always believed that stability comes from predictability. You show up for the people you love and things fall into place. That's what I believed when I married Lauren 6 years ago. To anyone on the outside, we looked solid. We owned a modest home, split chores evenly, and even had a shared calendar to manage our schedules. Lauren worked as a nurse at the local hospital, long shifts, high stress. I understood when she came home exhausted. I never questioned her need for space, especially after tough days. I tried to be her peace, her soft place to land. We weren't overly affectionate, but I thought that was just part of being together for years. Things settle, passion fades, but love stays, or so I told myself. Then small things started to feel off. It was little stuff at first. She stopped texting me during her breaks. Her goodnight kisses turned into absent-minded pecks. She started locking her phone, even around the house. I chalked it up to work stress, maybe burnout. I told myself not to overthink it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was slowly pulling away. I remember one night when I made her favorite dinner, lemon herb chicken, mashed potatoes, and garlic asparagus, hoping it would cheer her up. She barely touched her plate and muttered something about being too tired to eat. I smiled and nodded, but something in my chest ached. I missed her even though she was right there. She began working late more often. Sometimes she'd come home well past midnight, saying an emergency kept her in the ER. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But a quiet voice in my head whispered that something wasn't right. Still, I stayed patient, supportive. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who doubted his wife for no reason. But looking back now, I realize I should have trusted that voice, the one telling me the foundation of our marriage was starting to crack. And cracks, if ignored long enough, always split wide open. The change didn't happen all at once. It crept in like a slow leak in the roof, quiet, unnoticed, until one day the ceiling caves in. I remember the exact moment I first felt truly unsettled. I had just gotten home early from work, a rare half-day due to a power outage at the office. I thought I'd surprise Lauren, maybe take her out for dinner, something simple to reconnect. But when I walked through the front door, the house was silent. Her car was in the driveway and her shift wasn't supposed to end until 7 p.m., but the living room was empty. I called out her name, no answer. I checked the bedroom, empty. Then I noticed the back door was slightly ajar. I stepped outside and saw her standing at the edge of the yard, deep in conversation on her phone. She didn't hear me at first. Her back was turned, but her tone was sharp, not like her usual gentle voice. I heard words like, "He's starting to ask questions, and don't worry, I've got it handled." The moment she realized I was behind her, she jumped. "Oh hey, you're home early," she said quickly, forcing a smile and ending the call. I asked her who she was talking to. She hesitated. "Just a coworker, scheduling stuff." The lie was too smooth, too rehearsed. That night I barely slept. My mind replayed the moment again and again, the way her voice shifted, the way her eyes darted when I asked questions. Something was being hidden, I just couldn't figure out what. Days passed and the distance between us grew like a fog I couldn't push through. She stopped making plans with me. I'd suggest a weekend getaway and she'd say she was on call. I tried to hold her hand once during a walk and she gently pulled away like I was a stranger. Then she began accusing me of being too intense, of checking up on her too much. Her words cut deep. I wasn't trying to control her, I was just trying to understand what was happening to us. But every time I asked for answers, I was met with deflection or anger. It felt like I was losing her, but also losing myself in the process. And I had no idea that things were about to spiral far beyond confusion, into betrayal, manipulation, and lies that would change everything. It happened on a Tuesday. I came home from work expecting a quiet evening, maybe dinner and a movie. Instead, I walked into a war zone. Lauren was pacing the living room, her eyes wild, her face flushed like she'd been crying, or pretending to. "What's going on?" I asked, confused. She turned on me like I was a stranger. "I can't do this anymore, Caleb. I'm done pretending." "Pretending what?" I asked, heart already racing. She pointed at me, trembling. "That you're not emotionally abusive, that I feel safe in this house. I don't." Her words hit like a sledgehammer. At first, I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd it didn't feel real. Abuse? Me? I'd never raised a hand, never shouted. If anything, I bent over backward to keep her happy. "Lauren, what are you talking about?" I asked, taking a cautious step toward her. "Don't come near me," she shouted, backing away like I was some monster. I froze. Within an hour, she had packed a bag, called her sister to pick her up, and stormed out. No warning, no discussion, just a hurricane of accusations and the slam of the front door. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of our bed, my bed now, trying to process what had just happened. I combed through every conversation, every moment, every decision I'd made in the past 6 months. Had I been controlling without realizing it? Had I missed something? Had I failed her somehow? The next day, things got worse. Her sister posted something cryptic on social media about brave women who escape toxic men. Then a mutual friend called to ask if I was okay, followed by another who said Lauren told them I was emotionally volatile and had threatened her safety. It didn't take long before the rumors spread. I could see the shift in how people looked at me. I was no longer Caleb, the reliable guy. I was Caleb, the abusive husband. I wanted to scream the truth, but I didn't even understand what the truth was yet. All I knew was that I was being painted as someone I didn't recognize, and that my world, everything I built with Lauren, had just collapsed under a lie. And the worst part, I still had no idea why. In the days that followed, the silence around me grew louder than any accusation ever could. People I used to talk to every day suddenly stopped returning my messages. My coworker and lunch buddy, Rob, started eating alone or making excuses. Even my boss called me into his office with a polite but strained expression. "Caleb, I'm going to need you to take some personal time," he said gently. "It's just until things settle. HR's been notified." I sat there in disbelief. "HR, I haven't done anything." He sighed. "I'm not saying you did, but when something like this surfaces, especially in a small town, optics matter." That word stuck in my throat, optics. Not truth, not facts, just perception. I walked out of that office and into a world that no longer looked familiar. My name, my reputation, my integrity, everything was now under silent judgment. I'd go to the grocery store and catch glances that lingered too long. A mom at the park who once chatted with me while our dogs played turned her back when she saw me. My own parents didn't know what to say. My dad muttered something about hoping it wasn't true, and my mom offered quiet prayers, her voice filled with uncertainty. What hurt the most wasn't the accusation itself, it was the emptiness that followed. The way people disappeared. The way everyone seemed so quick to believe something so far from who I was. I tried reaching out to Lauren. I texted, called, even emailed. Every message went unanswered. And in that silence, I started questioning everything. Maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe there was some invisible damage I caused without meaning to. I replayed every disagreement, every moment I raised my voice in frustration, every time I asked where she was going or why she was late. But the more I thought, the more I realized I had always given her space. I had never controlled her, never manipulated. If anything, I had loved too quietly, trusted too blindly. Still, the shame clung to me like a second skin. I was a man accused, and in this world, an accusation is all it takes. I spent nights lying awake, wondering how my life unraveled so quickly. But in that hollow space, somewhere beneath the guilt and confusion, a question began to stir. What if she wasn't afraid of me? What if she was hiding something of her own? I was sitting alone in the living room one evening, lights dim, the weight of everything pressing down on me like wet cement. The house felt colder now, emptier, almost like it knew she was gone. Every room echoed with memories I was trying hard not to relive. I hadn't turned on the TV in days. I didn't even bother cooking real meals anymore. Just frozen dinners and silence. That's when it hit me. The cameras. Months ago, I'd installed a home security system. Not because I didn't trust Lauren, but because there'd been a string of break-ins a few neighborhoods over. She was nervous, so I'd taken the initiative. Wired cameras, one in the living room, one facing the front door, and another in the backyard. All discreet, all synced to a cloud account I hadn't logged into in months. I sat up slowly. My heart started to pound, not from fear, but from the first flicker of purpose I'd felt in weeks. Maybe, just maybe, there was something there, something that could make sense of this chaos. I rushed to my laptop, hands trembling as I typed in the login credentials. The dashboard loaded. A little spinning wheel appeared, and then rows of thumbnail footage popped up. There it was, week after week of video, all time-stamped, all archived. The system had automatically saved motion-triggered recordings, hundreds of them. I started scanning the days leading up to the night she left. The day I came home early. The late-night arrivals. At first, it was just mundane clips, her coming home from work, grabbing a snack, falling asleep on the couch. But then I hit one clip that made my stomach drop. It was a Thursday night, one of the nights she'd claimed to be working late at the hospital. But the footage showed her walking in just after 9 p.m., not in scrubs, but in a tight black dress I'd never seen before. 30 minutes later, a man I didn't recognize entered through the back door. She greeted him with a kiss. My breath caught in my throat. Clip after clip told the same story. Her lies, her secret life, all recorded in quiet, indisputable truth. It wasn't just the affair. It was the way she laughed with him. The way she looked at him. And just like that, the shame that had been suffocating me cracked open and was replaced with something sharper. Rage. Not loud, not violent. Cold, focused. Because now I had something I hadn't had since the beginning of this nightmare. Leverage. I watched the videos again, just to make sure I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see. But the truth didn't blur with time, it got sharper. Different nights, same man. Different lies, same betrayal. Lauren had brought him into our home, my home, and built a story of fear around me to protect her secret. I felt sick. Not just from the betrayal, but from the reality that I had almost believed I was the villain in my own story. And now I had proof. I didn't rush to do anything with the footage. Instead, I sat with it for a couple of days, letting it settle in my bones. This wasn't just revenge. This was about reclaiming my name, about finally pulling the curtain back on the theater she had staged for everyone around us. I made a few backups, one on an external hard drive, one on a secure cloud server. Then I called a lawyer, the same one who helped a friend of mine through a messy custody case. Her name was Jennifer Klein, sharp as a tack and not afraid of confrontation. I met her at her office, armed with a flash drive and a folder of time-stamped screenshots. She reviewed everything quietly, no interruptions. Then she looked up, eyes narrowed with purpose. "She accused you of emotional abuse to justify this?" she asked. "She said she didn't feel safe," I replied, voice low. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. "Well, she's going to feel something now. This changes everything." We filed a response to the separation notice Lauren's lawyer had sent 2 weeks earlier. Jennifer attached a declaration, including the evidence. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about false accusations, character defamation, and emotional distress. That evening, I sat alone on the porch, watching the sunset burn across the sky. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. People had believed her lies because they sounded like truth. But now I had the truth, and it didn't need to shout. It only needed to be seen. And very soon, the people who turned away from me would see it too. I didn't expect things to change overnight, but the moment Lauren's lawyer received our response, the tone of everything shifted. Suddenly, there were no more public jabs on social media, no cryptic posts from her sister. The phone that had gone silent for weeks started buzzing again, calls from people who just wanted to hear my side. Too late. The silence had already spoken volumes, and I had learned who really stood with me when it mattered. Lauren didn't respond directly, not at first. But 2 days after Jennifer filed the motion, I received an email. No subject line, no greeting, just one sentence. "You really went through the footage." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She debuilt her lie on a shaky foundation, and now she realized the walls were crumbling around her. Jennifer informed me that Lauren's team was suddenly open to amicable discussions. They no longer mentioned her claims of abuse. In fact, they were trying to push for a quiet divorce with a mutual non-disparagement clause. Translation: they wanted me to stay quiet. But I wasn't interested in vengeance. I didn't want to ruin her life. I wanted peace, real peace, the kind you earn by standing up for yourself, not just surviving. I offered terms, no spousal support, she could keep her car and personal savings, and we'd split the furniture. But the house, That was mine. It was paid for by me long before we got married, and now it held proof of everything. She agreed quickly. Too quickly. That's when I realized something else. She wasn't just trying to avoid public shame. She was trying to protect him, the man she'd snuck into my house. I didn't know his name, but she had something to lose there. Maybe he had a family. Maybe he had money. Or maybe, just maybe, he was the one calling the shots all along. But I wasn't interested in chasing shadows anymore. The shift had happened. I was no longer the accused. I was no longer the confused, broken husband, staring at the ceiling wondering where he went wrong. I was in control now. And while Lauren retreated, trying to clean up the mess she created, I stood taller, clearer. The truth had changed everything, but it had also changed me. After the legal dust started to settle, I felt a strange urge to watch the footage again, not just to replay her betrayal, but to understand everything I'd missed. I pored over hours of video, frame by frame, piecing together the story the cameras told, one Lauren never intended me to see. There were moments that caught me off guard, not just the late-night meetings with the stranger, but subtle signs of her anxiety, the stolen glances at her phone, the hesitations in her step when she thought no one was watching. But then, deeper into the footage, I caught something else. One night about 2 weeks before everything blew up, I saw her arguing with the man in the driveway. The conversation was heated, words too fast to catch, but her face was desperate. The man's expression was cold, almost threatening. She backed away, glancing over her shoulder nervously. Then unexpectedly, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number. A few moments later, a familiar voice answered, one I recognized immediately. It was mine. The call lasted only a minute, but what I heard next made my skin crawl. Her voice was softer now, pleading. You have to believe me, Caleb. It's not what it looks like. I need you to understand. Then silence. No response. I rewound and listened again. It sounded like she was begging for forgiveness for something I didn't know about, something bigger than the affair. Suddenly, it wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. There was a deeper story buried beneath the surface, one I hadn't anticipated. I realized then that the security cameras hadn't just captured proof of an affair or a lie. They had caught the cracks in her own facade. The fear, the desperation. The parts she never showed me. It shook me to my core. Because despite everything, despite the hurt and anger, I still cared. But now, armed with the truth, the full truth, I was ready to face whatever came next. Not as a victim, not as a man destroyed by lies, but as a man who had finally opened his eyes. After weeks of silence, the day finally came when Lauren agreed to meet. Not at our home, too many memories there, but at a quiet cafe halfway between our places. I arrived early, nerves twisting in my stomach. Part of me wanted to scream, part wanted to beg for answers, but mostly I wanted to understand. When she walked in, she looked tired, older than I remembered. No makeup, no sharp words, just a woman who carried a heavy burden. We sat across from each other, the space between us filled with everything we never said. I started gently. Why did you accuse me? Why lie about something so serious? Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared, Caleb, scared of losing everything. I didn't know how to say the truth. I wanted to ask what truth, but I held back. Instead, I shared what I'd learned from the cameras, from the silence. About the affair, yes, but also about her fear, her desperation. She looked down. It wasn't just about him. It was about me, about feeling trapped. I thought if I blamed you, people would understand why I left. The pain in her voice hit me harder than the betrayal. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, but I didn't know how to be honest without destroying us both. We talked for hours, about mistakes, fear, and the lies we both lived with. But as the conversation ended, I realized something important. I wasn't just confronting her, I was confronting my own blind spots. The parts of me that ignored warning signs, that trusted blindly, that hoped love alone could fix everything. This meeting didn't erase the past. It didn't heal all wounds. But it did give me clarity. I could move forward, not as a victim of her lies, but as a man who had faced the darkness and stepped into the light. After that conversation with Lauren, something inside me shifted. The weight of betrayal and accusation didn't vanish overnight, but the sharp edges softened. I wasn't broken. I was becoming whole again. The legal process moved forward, but now I approached it with calm instead of rage. Jennifer handled the paperwork with precision, and we reached an agreement that respected my boundaries and my dignity. More importantly, I started reclaiming my life. I reconnected with old friends who had quietly waited to hear my side. I went back to the gym, the quiet place where I could breathe and clear my mind. I even took a weekend trip alone, just me, my camera, and the open road. In the quiet moments, I reflected on what I'd learned. Trust is precious but fragile. Love can be messy and painful, but it's also a teacher. And sometimes, the hardest battles aren't the ones we fight against others, they're the ones we fight within ourselves. I started therapy not because I needed fixing, but because I wanted to understand myself better, to grow stronger, to be ready for whatever came next. Lauren and I didn't become friends, and maybe we never will, but I wished her well from a distance, because in the end I chose peace over bitterness. The security cameras, the thing she thought she could never overcome, had become my unexpected allies. They didn't just expose her lies, they gave me the power to reclaim my story. Now I look ahead with clearer eyes and a steady heart. I'm not defined by her accusations or her betrayal. I'm defined by how I rise after the fall. And this time, I'm standing taller than ever.